Thank you, Chair, members of the committee, and dear guests, thank you. I know that you're not here with joy. I'd like to talk about a strategy that profoundly marked the Beauce area and really harmed an entire community. A 26-year-old lost her life, a victim of a trucker-caused death, a trucker working for Driver Inc. company. There were serious maintenance issues with this truck, and it was transporting overly heavy loads. Canadian safety must be a priority. How can a Liberal government accept that that a company under investigation for such terrible violations could still be allowed to continue to work? It's an embarrassment. Mr. Laskowski, the question is for you. Could you quickly describe what the illegal strategy is of Driver Inc.?
So the strategy itself was born in 2011 when the moratorium on T4As was born. You marry that with the personal service business model, and as an owner, you're looking at $20,000 to $30,000 per year per driver in savings. There's other benefits as we move along. With regards to how it evolved then over time, is you started to attract non-professional owners. The owners I represent and the folks represent, when you get into trucking, it's not a business just to make money, it's a commitment to public safety. What happened with regards to the underground economy? Trucks were no longer looked at as a matter of security and responsibility, but as cash registers. And so as a cash register, you could care little about the principles of safety, care little about the families you impact, whether you're employees in a safe truck or those that share the road. And we have seen this over 14 years of deterioration. Shelley brought up Highway 1117. The Ontario Trucking Association surveyed 1,200 professional truck drivers. 90% of them said, I no longer want to drive Highway 1117 because I'm scared for my life, not because of poor maintenance or animals or potholes, because of my fellow truck drivers.
Question for Ms. Couture. Who are these companies? Where do they come from? They come from everywhere. They're in Ontario, from Quebec. They come from all over the place, from every jurisdiction. So who is incorporated? Who can incorporate as a Driver Inc.? Anybody. When an immigrant comes in who's been sold a dream and they come here and their so-called employer tells them, well, sign here and you'll be incorporated and we'll pay you more. You won't need to pay taxes. So it's tax evasion right there, right from the start. People who are coming from other countries who come here on a closed permit have no choice. They have to stay with that so-called employer. So they do whatever has to be done. Now let's give a concrete example. Company hires a driver. The driver is told on Monday evening, you have to go from Toronto and go make a delivery in Cornwall. But don't be late, because the client in Cornwall, if you're half an hour late, he's going to charge $1,000 in penalty. But do they all have the same training? They're like private companies? They don't provide training. It's all threats. They threaten the drivers. So the drivers are threatened and they're frightened because anything that happens, if they have a flat tire or an accident or they're stuck in traffic, if they get to Cornwall late, it's going to be called their fault and it's going to come out of their paycheck. So how long does it take for a driver now to get a driver's license, Driver's Inc. license? I've seen some horror stories. Do you have any idea? Well, for some of them, it takes 6 to 8 weeks. Others, 1 weekend. 1 weekend? Yeah, a weekend. How can safety rules be respected with somebody who's just gotten 1 weekend's worth of training? It's unbelievable. Well, they don't show them everything. They don't provide the complete training. They just show them how to pass the test at the driver's bureau, whatever province has it. They just show them how to pass the test, not real training to be a professional driver. Do you feel safe on the road? No, I don't. What she just told us for Highway 11 and 17, I don't drive there. Thank you very much, Ms. Couture, and thank you, Mr. Grelot. Next, we'll be hearing from Sébastien Duval. 2.5 minutes. Thank you. Mr. Barcelou Duval. Thank you. It's rather striking what you're saying. Let's continue with Ms. Walker and Ms. Couture. You've mentioned that these people are paying 38 cents a mile compared to 68 cents. I don't know what that means, 38 cents or 78 cents a mile. But in other words, what I can understand is they're paid roughly half of what a regular driver would get. And if that 38 cents a mile, if you work full time, what does that give you as a salary? Well, I have to do it. In other words, so 78 cents an hour would give you $100,000 a year. So these people are getting, let's say, $50,000 instead of $100,000 a year. Now, what you mentioned is that there are a lot of people in there came from temporary immigration and their passports are confiscated. So they're threatened by their communities because they're only temporary, and they could be kicked out at any time. Yesterday, we talked about 10 steps that should be implemented. Some of those steps were listed by Mr. Laskowski today. For example, more inspections from CRA, more audits with the SDC. We would go further. We talked about the need for automatic audits for any new company in the field, but also to eliminate temporary immigrants' right to incorporate so that they could work, but they could work as salaried employees so that they would be under supervision and they would be and make sure that way that work providers would be responsible. Do you agree with these measures? Yes, absolutely. To prohibit somebody from the right to incorporate when they first get here. I'm talking about for people who are on temporary visas. They're given an opportunity to work as a salaried employee for a company and to learn what they don't know because they're coming from a country that has different customs and different standards. If they have to work as an employee, they have to have training provided to them, and they will learn what their rights and responsibilities are. Thank you very much. I have one question from Ms. Splinter. You talked about if you can't beat them, join them. We know that expression in French. So in other words, we'll do what they're doing. What do you think will be the consequence on the industry if everybody starts functioning like Driver Inc.? 15 seconds, please, for your answer.
To all workers. Employers are very frustrated, and it's very hard for them to operate in an unfair market. So these are real concerns that I think impact all of us. We've heard today about the issues around training, around safety. We need to address this issue.
Merci beaucoup, Mr. Barcelou.
Thank you very much, Mr. Barcelou Duval.
5 minutes, please.
Thank you. In regions like Haldimand, Norfolk, trucking is the backbone of our local economy. It supports our farmers, manufacturers, small businesses that depend on reliable transportation to move goods across the province and the country. But I'm even hearing there that the growing concern with Drivers Inc. model and that it's undermining competition, exploiting workers, and creating serious gaps in safety. This problem is something that has been building for years, and this Liberal government has failed to act. My question is for the Canadian Trucking Alliance. In your opinion, do you believe that the government should do more, like legislating a model of shared responsibility where incorporation remains possible, but carriers cannot use it to shield against safety and tax and labor obligations?
Thank you for the question. So incorporation is important to our industry as owner-operators. You have an example right at the end. Joanne and Shelley are owner-operators they are incorporated. In essence, they are small businesses, but they operate under the Small Business Act and run their businesses accordingly. What needs to be understood here is there are zero taxable benefits to incorporating as a truck driver, as a personal service business. Folks, if we had to do a quick show of hands, if I asked you, you can incorporate it as a PSB, but you're going to pay more taxes. Anybody want to sign up? Because that's the reality of the personal service business tax model. By the way, you forego overtime, you forego holiday pay, you forego 10 paid sick days, thousands of dollars, and you pay more tax.
And we also know that the current Liberal government has not taken the safety concerns of Drivers Inc. seriously. Transport Canada data itself shows that driver fatigue is a factor in a significant number of commercial vehicle crashes. Can you please tell me about the gaps in enforcing breaks, in enforcing rest time, in making sure that the cause of fatigue and the risk to citizens is not present on the highways, and how Driver Inc. affects that?
So, in short, I'll pass it to Jeff, and I'll just add a little comments. Just to be clarified for the committee members, enforcement of those rules are a provincial responsibility. But what we are asking the national government and national committees to do is to then begin to audit carriers. Over 90% of the trucking companies in this province, the province of Ontario, are known as satisfactory unaudited. What that means, folks, nobody knows nothing about them. Nobody's visited them ever. We need to change our thinking of how we audit and we govern our trucking industry from a safety perspective. I take no great pleasure in what I'm about to say. Do not trust us. You can trust my members. They will always do the right thing. They will always put safety first. They will park a truck and park a driver if they believe that truck is unsafe or that driver isn't fit for the road. They will forgo the money. But there are a growing number of carriers who could care less, and you just heard about it. They will put a driver in a truck, in an unsafe truck, and they could care less about who they impact, because as I just said to you, 25% of carriers that ESDC goes back to see to enforce are gone.
Thank you for that answer. So who is responsible for, accountable for audit and compliance, for example, in the Drivers Inc. situation? Is it the carrier, the trucking company, the incorporated driver, or the driver? Or, for example, who makes sure that logs aren't fabricated, that loads aren't, that they're not taking too heavy of loads, that brakes are taking, that there's an audit and enforcement on the entire industry? Whose responsibility is that?
So the quick answer, from a labor perspective, it's shared by the ESDC, or the Department of Labor, and provincial authorities. From a tax perspective, it's CRA. And from a safety perspective, it's a joint process. The actual on the road is done by the provinces, but the federal government here in Transport Canada has a role. Maybe, Jeff, you can explain a little bit of the role of Transport Canada in truck safety.
Sure. So thank you for the question. So the role of Transport Canada governs hours of service, so how long drivers can drive, and they govern the transportation of dangerous goods. And they have delegated through the Motor Vehicle Safety Act, or Motor Vehicle Transport Act, the authority to the provinces and territories to manage truck safety. So Transport's role is really twofold. On the hour, they control the regulations, hours of service, dangerous goods, but they have also through the Motor Vehicle Transport Act, delegated the authority to the provinces to do the safety piece. So we feel there is a role for Transport Canada to develop a system where coordinated or consistent data goes in there, and then everybody can be measured the same. So that process is underway. We need that accelerated.
And how are
Thank you, Dr. Lewis. Unfortunately, we went over by 40 seconds. It was a great question, so I wanted to give you the time to get the answer.
Thank you.